This is a match in a local Pokemon TCG tournament held here in Kuwait on February 3rd, 2022. This tournament was hosted by the wonderful people at Set and Play. Set and Play is your local stop for all sorts of tabletop activities, which includes the Pokemon TCG playing and collecting, and many more games and activities ranging from Yu-Gi-Oh and Digimon all the way to Dungeons and Dragons. Definitely do check them out if you're interested in weekly activities for Pokemon and more. Link in the description. This event was sponsored by Vendito, the local online marketplace connecting all types of sellers and buyers in Kuwait. Vendito is for everyone, for individual sellers with any new or used items to sell, for home businesses selling local items, international brands, and much more. Anyone can become a vendor and start selling on Vendito, and anyone can start shopping and bidding on auctions on Vendito in over 18 plus categories. Definitely do check them out, link also in the description. Semifinals Match 1, Game 1 between Single Strike Urshifu and Gengar. Let's get right into it. Single Strike Urshifu starts off this battle. And first move is playing a Tower of Darkness Stadium, a strong draw supporter for Single Strike, allowing you to discard a Single Strike card from your hand and to draw 2 cards from the deck. Very powerful. It attaches a Single Strike energy to the Urshifu V. Now, Urshifu V is going to be the main attacker of this deck because of Gengar's weakness to fighting, allowing Urshifu to knock out Gengar and Gengar VMAX with that impact blow attack. Very powerful. And with Urshifu VMAX's beatdown with 3 single strike energies, thanks to that 20 extra damage each one provides, can also one-shot the Gengar VMAX without discarding any energies that Gmax one blow usually provides. We'll see if the Gengar deck here has any responses to this start. Does play the Evolution Incense, but does nothing with it. Perhaps just thinning the deck for that Crobat, and there it is. Crobat allows you to draw up to 6 cards in your hand. Excellent draw support for single strike decks that usually suffer from not being able to draw any further and bricking. But Crobat helps to alleviate some of that without taking up a supporter slot. Does discard an Urn for Cram and does not get the heads. That's unfortunate. Perhaps looking for a energy or a VIP pass to play this. Discards the Gengar VMAX in hand to draw 2. Does he find what he needs from this? Plays the Quick Ball and discards the Tower. Won't need that Tower since 1 is already in play. Is he looking for a Gengar or Houndour here? Gengar normally doesn't require too many Houndooms, so perhaps he's looking here for the Gengar V. But if he's worried his Houndour in the active is going to get KO'd, he can also search for Houndour to try, because 2 Houndooms is better than 1, but 3 might not be better. Does go for the Houndour, probably thinking his Houndour in the active is going to get knocked out. Not a terrible plan. Gengar does need 3 energies to knock out a VMAX, if that's the fear he has. Does play the Marnie supporter for turn. Still looking for that energy to attach. Perhaps even looking for a Gengar V to put as the 5th bench. Has that Cram in hand, but what is he discarding for it? Does discard the VIP pass, which would have let him get Gengar. The risk does pay off, and he can search for what is probably the energy. Yeah, finds the Hiding Dark energy and attaches to Gengar. With the single strike energy still in deck, Houndooms can still search and attach to Gengar. As many as he needs, well, up to 3, and perhaps drawing 1, allowing him to place up to 4 next turn. But passes, not being able to attack. With the capture energy attached to Urshifu V, they'll be able to search for a basic from the deck and place it. There's only 1 Houndoom, so if they can find that Houndoom, this Urshifu V could get an attack off. Whereas the Urshifu's first attack does no damage. And the VMAX does require 3 energies to attack. Discards a Fighting Energy with that Quick Ball and plays Evolution Incense. Should be able to get the Houndoom here, or the Urshifu VMAX. Most likely it's the Houndoom. And the Umbreon V. Is weighing his options between different evolutions, perhaps thinking of getting that Umbreon VMAX or that Houndoom, and gets the Umbreon VMAX and uses its resting ability to gust up the Gengar in the bench. Perhaps knowing that with more Houndooms in the deck that he'll be able to find them using that Marnie and the Tower versus the Umbreon, who most likely only runs 2. Does he find that Houndoom? Having already attached the energy, discards the Urshifu VMAX. Stays with that Urshifu V for that 2 prize potential. Does find the Houndoom. Does have an energy in deck. Attaches it. Take 20 damage. But gets this important knockout on Gengar V. With Gengar V out of the way and an Umbreon VMAX in the bench, the opponent has no Gengar VMAX instant pressure to take on that Urshifu V and that Umbreon VMAX at the same time. But we'll see what happens. Does the opponent have a response for this momentum shift? Quick balls away a Battle VIP pass and plays the Evolution Incense. A similar start to this turn. Looks for a basic in the deck and looks for an evolution. With Houndoom being the only Pokemon that can evolve, yeah, finds that Houndoom, attaches him. A Pain Explosion from Gengar V could take a knockout on the Urshifu V, but would require 3 energy cards. Finds the Crobat with Quick Ball. Having only 2 cards in his hand, Crobat will allow him to draw 4 more cards and increase the chance of finding that extra Gengar or Urshifu or any other tools that would require him to win this turn. Would need to retreat that Houndour and would need to play the Gengar or Urshifu onto the bench. No supporter played yet, which is important. Without, does find the Gengar, but does he have enough energies in hand and in deck? Plays the Path. Now, without any more most decks run only 2 Crobats, and now that the Path has been placed down, Crobat's effects won't matter. But more importantly, that Umbreon V, when evolved into Umbreon VMAX, will have its ability negated, and therefore cannot gust up anything from his bench, which should keep his bench safe from abilities. Doesn't keep it safe from boss, but at least the Umbreon VMAX won't be a free option. Uses the Houndoom to attach an energy onto Gengar. Not a good sign, seeing as he has not found any other Houndooms or energy in hand. Perhaps he has no tool. Still has that... Does not have that Tower of Darkness. Excuse me. Played that Path. Passes his turn. Could not do anything else with it, unfortunately. What do we do here? Now, Urshifu cannot attack again because of its impact blow, meaning that it needs to retreat from the active or evolve in order to pull off an attack here. But Umbreon has no such restriction on its 160 damage move, but does require 3 energies. So it would require an energy in hand to attach manually onto that Umbreon. Does get a single strike energy from the deck using single strike roar, bringing its HP down to 290. A nice spot for Gengar VMAX to try and take down. Does he find anything else? Considers his options, and attaches a second single strike energy with that single strike roar on his second Houndoom. Brings the Umbreon VMAX down to 270 health. Does have the fighting energy in hand. Umbreon VMAX will be able to take out knockouts on Gengar V, on Crobat V, on Houndoom, and Houndour. Now that it's able to do 160 plus 40 thanks to its 2 single strike energies. Searches the Urshifu VMAX. So Urshifu VMAX could evolve here and take out the Houndour. But having more than 1 VMAX could be a risk here, as his opponent would only need 2 knockouts. Retreats by taking out the 2 single strike energies. Manual retreat. If he has that urn in his hand, he could, and he does. He has the urn. The urn will let him recycle them back into the deck. Interesting play. By retreating here, he puts them back into the deck, allowing his Houndooms to attach them again next turn. Perhaps an air balloon or a switch could have achieved this, but the option is still there, and this is one of the reasons single strike is so powerful, thanks to that single strike roar energy acceleration. Does play that Marnie. Not many options left to do here. Played a supporter, attached his energy, drew the cards he needed. His bench is in a phenomenal spot. Takes out that Houndour. The only thing he would need is a Tower Darkness to bump up that Path. But Gengar needing to attack this turn. Do we have the evolution? Urshifu V must be the target here. Umbreon cannot knock out a Gengar V Max. Does not have enough damage. It only do 200. It would need more than 200 to knock out a Gengar V Max in one turn. The Urshifu V, thanks to that weakness, can knock him out. And so Urshifu V will need to be the priority here for this Gengar player. And having a second Gengar on the bench for that Gengar V Max threat, should his Gengar V get taken out, is also important. Does have the boss. Does he have the V Max? Is he going to play the VMAX? And does he have the Gengar V option for the bench? Oh no, he just attacks with Pain Explosion. The turn has already passed. Picked up his prize cards. Interesting play. Found that quick ball in his prize cards. Umbreon VMAX can take this KO on Gengar V. With no more Gengar V in the bench, this game is not looking very good for the Gengar player. Although Urshifu has 4 damage counters on it, this doesn't do much to counteract this, counteract anything. With Umbreon VMAX able to take the Gengar V knockout and only 1 prize remaining, nothing on the opposing player's side can knock out this Umbreon VMAX in 1 turn. A Gengar VMAX with Fear and Panic could, but with no Gengar, it can't evolve it. The game is all but over at this point. How will the Gengar player respond? Perhaps with a sleep on the Umbreon is the only way to go. We haven't seen any switches being played. Perhaps this list doesn't have switch. Maybe he's deciding to boss and delay time for his Gengar VMAX. No, instead he chooses to scoop. The game is over. Game 1 goes to the single strike Urshifu V player. Semifinals match 1, game 2 after a 1-0 victory for Urshifu Umbreon against Gengar single strike. Begin. The game has already started with Gengar actually going first. Plays a VIP pass and a Hiding Dark attached to the Gengar. Similar board to what we've seen last turn, only the Crobat's in the active. Single strike Urshifu also has a similar board with the Umbreon in the active this time rather than the Urshifu, but no energy attached. Not a massive problem with the 3 Houndours being able to evolve into Houndooms and accelerating the energy, the 3 energies required to attack. But with the Gengar being active here, Gengar VMAX is possible. Tries to go for that Cryptomatic by discarding a Quick Ball and does get a Heads. What card does he look for here? Finds a switch to move the Gengar into the active. Many possible plays there. Boss or Houndoom. Depends on what is in his hand and what he is going to draw with his supporters. If he does not offer the boss. Does offer the research. This is dangerous for Gengar VMAX. With an Urshifu V on the bench, a knockout could be coming at any moment with Impact Blow. Perhaps the Gengar VMAX was not the correct play. But Pokemon is a game of risk and a game of luck. Sometimes you have to take those risks. And that's what's happening here. Gets another Heads with Cryptomatic. These risks are paying off. Does he find the card that he needs? Needs at least 1 energy. Accelerates it with Houndoom. Will put him in knockout range of a Urshifu VMAX beatdown. But with the same energy requirement as Urshifu V's Impact Blow, which will knock out Gengar VMAX at full health. The 20 HP means nothing. And finds that Houndoom, puts that single strike energy. Once again, with no Gengar V on the bench, that evolution threat for next turn is not there. So the single strike has no fear. As long as you knock out this Gengar VMAX, the game will turn to their favor again. Does knock out Umbreon with Fear and Panic, thanks to Fear and Panic doing 60 damage for each V Pokemon your opponent has in play, doing 180, and that single strike energy bringing up to 200, which is enough to knock out Umbreon. While there is no Umbreon V on the bench here for Urshifu to potentially gust up a Pokemon on the opposing bench, but with Gengar already in the active, that gust will not be necessary, as Gengar is the prime target for the Urshifu to knock down. Plays Tower of Darkness, first stadium of the game. Discard a single strike card to draw 2 cards is the effect of the stadium. Uses the 2 Houndooms to attach energies to Urshifu. All that is needed now is 1 energy from hand, and the Gengar is taking a one-way trip to the discard pile. Plays that Marnie. Has 5 chances here for an energy. Finds at least 1. Does he find one? Does he discard? Look for another energy? What do they do? There's many options here. No, does discard that Urshifu VMAX again. Opting to only play Urshifu V as it is more than enough to knock out Gengar. And as a 2-prizer, it forces the opponent to need to knock out more Pokemon. Searches for that Umbreon. Gets that Umbreon, benches it with Capture Energy. With 3 energies attached to Urshifu V, Gengar VMAX is nothing but 3 prizes given to the opponent now. And this game, once again, this match has swung to the favor of the Urshifu V player. Attaches a Tool Jammer, but no tools were played in the previous game or this game from the Gengar side, so most likely they're just to thin the hand for a potential future Crobat play or a Marnie play or something. Gengar does get knocked out. 3 prizes are given. Decides who he wants in the active. Had a Crobat before Gengar. Moves that Crobat back up into the active. Oh, has 2 Houndooms in hand and evolves them. A Gengar V here will knock out Urshifu V if the 3 Houndooms can accelerate energy onto it. Searches for a Crobat instead. With only 1 card in hand, the player will need more options, and Crobat allows you to get more options using a Quick Ball. Something that Quick Ball normally doesn't do. But Crobat makes it much more powerful as a supporter, without using up a supporter slot. Does discard Tower with Tower to draw more cards, looking for that Gengar. Has a single strike in hand, but if he has 2 in hand, it's dangerous. Might need to Marnie them back into the deck in order to accelerate them with Houndoom. Plays that Path. Path does shut down Umbreon V, giving the player time to set up the Gengar VMAX. Discards Evolution Sense with Cram, but gets Tails. No luck for today. Does Marnie the energies back into the deck? Do they find the Gengar? And do they find a switch? Does get the Quick Ball, which will let them search and bench the Gengar. No worries there. The bench is now full. With Gengar V's Pain Explosion, a knockout is possible on Urshifu V. But a counter knockout with Umbreon VMAX could spell disaster. Opts to pass the turn, unable to switch out that Crobat. If a boss's order does come into play here, then the game is all but over. Or a red signal with Path, if Path can be bumped with a Tower of Darkness. We will see now. Uses Houndoom Skill Strike Roar to put an energy on Umbreon, brings it down to 180 health. Opts to shuffle the deck, no more searches. Does he play boss here? Do we see it? Urshifu V is unable... the Path does get removed. So Umbreon VMAX does turn into an option. However, Urshifu does not have the ability to attack this turn due to Impact Blow. So must evolve or get switched out of the active once in order to attack. Air Balloon onto the Houndoom. And a single strike from hand onto Umbreon does play that Marnie. Umbreon could knock out this Crobat in the active, with no boss being possible anymore because the supporter has already been played. If Umbreon moves the active, the Crobat could get knocked out. But that's only possible with either a switch or by discarding 2 single strike energies attached to Urshifu. As we've seen last game, an earn... Oh, it does bring up the Urshifu... does bring up the Umbreon VMAX, though. And that brings up the Gengar. Having already attached energy from hand, he does need the earn to knock out the Gengar. And it doesn't look like he has it. The Gengar player does have an earn in hand. Definitely doesn't want to slide it over to the other side. And hope that his opponent doesn't have one. A Houndoom gets evolved here, but all 4 energies are in the field. And so a third Houndoom will do nothing here. Does bring up Houndoom. No Urn in sight. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a game. Passes the turn. Now the threat of Gengar VMAX is possible here. Gengar VMAX does not get knocked out by Umbreon VMAX, but can knock out Urshifu V. The opponent is at 3 prizes, so if they bring up a second Urshifu V, it could spell disaster with Gengar VMAX active. But with no bench space to put a Gengar V, and needing 4 prizes, does attach a third single strike energy. Do they have the boss to knock out that Urshifu? Or would they knock out that Umbreon? An Urn now will be a guaranteed KO on Gengar V. An Urn for the opponent, that is. Uses Pain Explosion to knock out the Houndoom, interestingly enough. No Gengar VMAX in sight. Takes 1 prize, has 3 prizes remaining. The prizes remaining are now equal for both sides. Moves up that Umbreon VMAX. If an Urn is found here, the game could be over. Uses that Quick Ball, discards the Morpeko. Unnecessary for this matchup. Morpeko's a nice single prize attacker, but is great, is at its greatest when facing Mew VMAX or when facing any sort of weakness. Being able to only do 160 damage. Hitting weakness means it can do 320. Plays that Marnie. Does not need boss. And a nice disruption to the opponent here. Looking for that Urn still, with 2 single strikes in the discard. Or an energy attachment, whether it be capture or basic fighting. Both that we know are run in this deck. Discards a Houndoom with Tower. That's all 4 Houndooms accounted for. Draws 2 cards. Plays that Urn. Puts the 2 back into the deck, but uses the 2 Houndoom abilities. Attaches 1 to Umbreon VMAX. Attaches the other to the Urshifu V in the bench. Umbreon VMAX now hitting for 220 is a knockout on Gengar V, even at full health. But the Gengar has already taken 90 damage. Has the 3 energy needed. Gengar gets knocked out. 3 single strike energies and a Gengar V in the discard. No Gengar V on the bench. Only 1 prize remaining for the opponent. This is the same position that we were in last game. It's not looking good. If the opponent does not have a switch, a Gengar V here could potentially put the Umbreon to sleep and delay the game a few more turns. Long enough to get a Gengar VMAX in order to knock down this Umbreon. However, attaches this Hiding Dark onto Crobat, allowing it to retreat at no cost due to it being a Dark type. Uses Evolution Incense. Finds nothing. The opponent cuts the deck. Do we see the Gengar V? Plays the Research. Boss is not necessary here, as Umbreon is capable of knocking out any V Pokemon. And Urshifu V, with 3 energies, is also capable of knocking out any V Pokemon. Overall, not a great condition to be in. Situation to be in. Discards the VIP pass for Quick Ball. Can he find the Gengar? Is the Gengar in his deck? Instead opts for the single strike Urshifu. Oh no. Perhaps there's no Gengar. With no ability to sleep and no way to knock out that Umbreon VMAX and the Urshifu V. Does have the Urn to put 2 energies back in the deck, but nothing can be done here. The Umbreon VMAX can take a knockout on any Pokemon it wishes. Being able to hit for swinging for 220 HP. Taking any prize, and with only 1 prize remaining, that's a guaranteed win. No more bench space for Gengar. And that's what we see here. The opponent scoops. The game is over. Urshifu takes the set 2-0. Going on to the finals to face Mew VMAX in a best of 3.